Eamonn Holmes certainly didn't hold back as he welcomed politician Kevin Hallreich onto GB News as he slammed the controversial prison release scheme. Eamonn Holmes slammed the Labour government's controversial early prison release scheme. During Tuesday's visit, October 22, to the GB News studios, the 64-year-old and his temporary co-host Ellie Costello as they discussed some of the biggest stories hitting the headlines. This included Donald Trump's baffling shift at McDonald's in a bid to win over working-class voters and King Charles' royal visit to Australia. But arguably the most controversial topic was the news that more than 1,000 prisoners are set to be released from UK prisons up and down the country today. This marks the second wave of early releases aimed at alleviating the overcrowding crisis. On the 24-hour news channel, the broadcaster welcomed the Shadow Secretary of State for Business and Trade Kevin Hallreich onto the show to discuss the controversial scheme. Eamonn certainly didn't mince his words, as he began, "It's hard to think of a polite way to put this. It's a mess. What you're replacing and what you're introducing, it's not making up the difference. That's the thing, Kevin. We're in a very bad situation. What's the long-term answer? I mean, you are hardly likely to double or treble the places available, are you?" The politician replied, "You're right about that. And it was a mess last time when Labour released prisoners, including 37 prisoners who weren't supposed to be released. They've got to be able to do their job more competently, and we did see some flaws last time." Eamonn added, "Things will not be the same after this and people will be able to commit crime knowing they're not going to be put behind bars." The scheme, which allows eligible inmates to serve 40% rather than 50% of their sentences, has faced backlash for potentially undermining the efforts to reduce reoffending and maintain public safety. The early release scheme, known as SDS-40, was expanded to include prisoners serving sentences for 5 years or more. Justice Minister Lord Timpson stated that authorities are as ready as we can be for today's releases. The scheme aims to create up to 5,500 extra places for new inmates. Eligible prisoners have been steadily leaving jails up and down the country since the changes were implemented earlier this year. Those released will be forced to follow strict license conditions. However, Chief Inspector of Probation, Martin Jones, warned that the scheme's effectiveness could be undermined by high recall rates. He noted that for every 100 prisoners released in the first quarter of this year, 56 were recalled to jail for reoffending or breaching the license conditions. The Ministry of Justice has acknowledged that overcrowding had pushed jail to the point of collapse.